Hello everyone. Today we are going to see how we are going to utilize Postman to collaboratively work on API development with the peers. Uh, just like when we do app development, we use GitHub to collaboratively work on, which is the common repository, and we also can utilize Postman to collaboratively work on either API development or API testing. For example, when you have added an API into the Postman collection, you might have added the sample data, API endpoint, API collections, the credentials or anything. And once you have set up, once you have figured out the things and your colleague doesn't need to reinvent the same wheel, you can simply share the access to the workspace what you're working on, and they can access to that real time. Or else you can even export the Postman collection or Postman APIs from here and share with others. Let's get started and see how we can create the workspaces and how we can collaborate with others. So under the workspace section, you can create your own workspace. Create workspace, and this says a blank workspace and any type of workspace you want to have. So just for simplicity, I'll go ahead with the blank workspace, but this also has other workspaces, like for example when you want to do API testing or API development or blah blah. So we can deep dive into this later in our upcoming videos, or you can explore yourself. For now I'm just going to create a blank workspace. So I'm going to name this training workspace. Training workspace, and for now this is only visible to me, and or else I can share it with everyone from your team. Currently I don't have any team as I do this demo, so I'll just create it only me. Let's create, and this is the workspace I have just created, and this is empty for now, and I can create the Postman collections. Like for example, you have different kind of APIs and each can go into one collection. Like for example, you have a library, and you have a couple of different APIs to connect to your library app or library system by various different vendors or clients, and assume like book collection. So for that books, you can like add books, remove books, and see the list of books what you have in your library. And another collection could be membership. You also can add the membership, and like if there is any fee, membership fee, and you also can add like start date, end date, add the membership, add members to the uh, different roles. For example, just the regular reader, and whether you can borrow or you can borrow how many books and related stuffs under the membership section. So let's deep dive into how what a collection is, how we can add requests. So into that books collection, I'm going to add API called getbook. So this is a get API, and I'm going to have my common host name for my library app, and then I'm going to get a book. So get by book, so I would assume that then the identifier will be the book's ID. So why am I giving the host name and ID within the curly bracket? So these are the placeholders or the variables I'm defining, and this will be defined somewhere in a different environment file or from different variable section so that it can be dynamically loaded. The purpose of this is to have a different configuration for the same API schema. For example, you have a testing environment for your library app, and you will have different credentials, different host names, and different book ID, obviously, for each book. So that's something you can configure under the environment section, which I will cover later in this video. For now, this is the get endpoint, and you have an ID, and I'm assuming like we don't have to define any body or anything, but definitely when we have a different kind of get book API by like if you don't know the book ID, then you can give for example author or book title or what kind of book it is, or what kind of language it is, as the parameter, and you should be able to query the book or query a list of books from the get book API, but with a different schema. So for this is a simple one, so I will just cover this one, and please let me know if you want me to cover different kind of APIs and how we can define them. But today's focus is just on how to use the Postman application to utilize in terms of API development or API testing. So I'm not going to define any body, and I'm just going to click send and see it in the console. How does it look like? I'm just going to clear and try again, and see these parameters are not replaced with any values. Why? I haven't defined anything yet. So under the environment section, currently this is null, and I'm going to add a new environment. We can define a global environment which will be always common regardless of which environment we add here, but for now I'm just going to show how we can add different environments. When you click on it, then I'm defining a test environment, and what is the variable name? Host name is the variable name. I'm going to define as localhost as the host name, because this is the test environment I have defined. And for that ID, I'm just going to define a sample ID, some test ID here, just to show how whether this is working or not. So I'm just going to clear this and hit enter here. So nothing got populated. Why? Yeah, I got it, because the environment is not chosen, and still it says no environment, and I got to choose the relevant environment over here. Then only it will apply the values from that specific environment. So now I'm going to click send, and here you see the host name what I have defined and the ID what I have defined is replaced here. And don't worry about this error, because I don't have any API or any server running on the local host. This can't uh, uh, hit the host because nothing is running. But when you have an endpoint actively running, then it will give you an appropriate response. But I'm not going to cover that for now. Let's save this. And how you can share your Postman collection. There is invite section, and you can invite your team members by adding their email address and send the invite, and they should be able to click and accept the invitation in terms of accepting um, uh, the access to the Postman collection I have shared. But if you just want to share a single API with someone else, you just don't want to share the whole workspace, for example, it's unnecessary, or you just want to share all the parameters populated, and just they don't have a Postman API, but they just wanted to try out how the API is working, then they can obviously use curl request to send the request from their terminal. So for that, how you can do that, you can go to this code section and you will see the curl command for that specific API. So this curl command will contain all the necessary information for that specific API. For example, if assume I have a header called authorization header, and a value will be bearer token, and when I save, I can see the header got added. I also can have any params, um, key value, and when I also add the params, that gets added to the URL, and I can simply copy this and share with someone else, and they should be able to just paste this into their terminal and hit enter. Then they will be able to see the exact same response as you. So I have showed how we can share the Postman workspace or the collection from here by inviting them to the workspace. The advantage of sharing the workspace is that they also have access to the environments defined into the same workspace. But when you just copy the specific API, it will only copy the ones which you have already selected. And see, if I don't select the environment, this is nothing, it's not populated, and when you select the environment, this gets populated. So we can be very specific in terms of what kind of values we want to populate, and share the curl request with them, like especially when it comes to some credentials, like for example authorization token, or even think of some auth endpoint. Instead of this book endpoint, authorize endpoint, we will be providing the credentials, and we don't want to share them and share with everyone. So we can simply utilize this curl command, and like not choosing the environment here, or not choose like emptying the credentials, and create a curl request and share with them. So you don't have to manually type anything, just by defining in the API section, and this is very user friendly, and you should be able to generate the curl request. There is also other languages available. For example, you want to implement the API, or you want to call this particular API uh, from from your Java application. You can define something like this, and you can straight away copy and paste in your code and add the relevant dependencies as well as the imports, and the code should work straight away. So this, they have a variety of languages over here, and you should be able to generate the relevant code to call that specific API. That's it. So in this is how you can share the API and work API development collaboratively. And in my next videos, I'm going to share how we can use the Postman collection, Postman to do the runner to execute multiple API requests, or a volume of input data, or number of input data, to fire the same API call all over and over again. So I'll cover that in the next video, and thanks for watching.